Welcome, everybody. I know you all know why you're here today. We are going to be, in a few moments, balancing the state budget. I've already signed a number of bills that help do that this morning, administratively, the bills that passed the general session. I've signed all of them. The one that remains is the bill that sets the new trigger for the gubernatorial authority. I will be signing that. And then immediately thereafter, I will be signing the cuts that bring our budget back into balance. As you can see, H.R. 1 has thrown our budget out of balance. Today, we will be rebalancing that. Unlike Congress, unlike the federal government, we balance our budget here in Colorado. We are fiscally responsible. This shows the federal deficit increased by the bill that passed H.R. 1. You can also look at the very alarming trends in our national debt. As a member of Congress now as a governor, I continue to call for a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution that would require Congress to balance the budget, just like we do here in Colorado, just like we're going to do here today. Here, it shows what's happening here. So the Tabor limit with C is there in the yellow line. It shows we've had healthy surpluses many years. There's years we've been under. This was a year where we did have a Tabor surplus. Taxpayers were going to get a refund. H.R. 1 was signed because of the concurring rolling changes to state tax code. It's very technical, but because of that, in the current year, not only did they blow a hole in the federal budget, increasing our deficit by trillions of dollars, but yes, they cost the state $1.2 billion as well. A couple $100 million of that came from the surplus that we had anyway. The rest is being addressed here today by the bills I signed, the executive actions I'm taking, and making sure that we are prepared for the next generation. For months, we've been communicating with Coloradans and members of Congress about H.R. 1. I want to make sure people know I lobbied against H.R. 1. I was against it. I didn't want us to have to do this here today. And we haven't even seen a lot of the future negative impacts that H.R. 1 will bring. This is not about what a lot of folks have read about, know about, Medicaid cuts, SNAP cuts. That's not what this is about. Those happen in the future. We want to be ready for them. There was one piece that was done this session around referring a ballot initiative that now has the flexibility to help meet the state match requirements for SNAP, so that's very important. But generally speaking, that will be a matter for the next year and the year after, general session. The items that we are talking about today are for the current year we are in, the current budget. I was proud to be joined by legislators and sign a balanced budget in April. We had a surplus. It is for that very budget, because of the impact to revenue in the current year, that the General Assembly came back for the special session, took action, that we are taking action today to balance Colorado's budget. I also want to point out, of course, that congressmen from Colorado, Congressman Hurd, Congressman Evans, Congressman Crank, Congresswoman Boebert, voted for H.R. 1. It did only pass by one vote, so any of them could have been the vote against it that prevented it from passing. And we are here today because of them. I will be sending those 4 members of our congressional delegation signing pens here because of the work that we've had to go through because of H.R. 1. Again, unlike Congress, Colorado balances our budget. And that's why, after careful consideration, the legislature came back. I'm taking the actions I am today. We've heard from so many people about the impact of H.R. 1, many of that ahead of us, rural hospitals, healthcare providers, people losing healthcare insurance. I'm proud of the steps that were taken by the legislature because of what wasn't in H.R. 1 as well, which was the premium tax credits for healthcare. There's still time for Congress to do that. I call upon Congress to pass the premium healthcare tax credits to reduce the cost of insurance for people in the individual market. If they don't, we're proudly doing what we can in Colorado. It still won't add up to the loss of those tax credits, but I'm very proud that we were able to find, again, a bill that had bipartisan support that was able to shore up the exchange. That will remain an ongoing topic for future years if Congress doesn't act. So that's one area I call upon Congress to act soon. The open enrollment period opens in a month, a little more than a month. Congress really needs to act in the next month or so if we're going to have an impact on premiums and keep them down and prevent those 28%, 38% increases, which are not theoretical. This is what the insurance company said. We're increasing premiums by this much because of the loss of the tax credits. So there's still time to fix that. We did what we could as a state, proud of the legislative leader, Speaker McCluskey, and others who led that effort, and I want to thank them. And just before this, I administratively signed new laws that helped close some of the corporate tax loopholes. I want to thank Representative Mabry, Representative Bazenecker, Representatives Okai, Marshall, Stewart, Camacho, Sirota, Woodrow, McCormick, Senators Weissman, Gonzalez, Ball, Marchman, Snyder, Henriksen, Cutter, Kipp, and Winter. Those bills were signed this morning. We are also making sure that we are maintaining strong reserves. We will have a reserve north of 13% after all these actions are done. And that is more than twice the reserve that when I took office. And we want to, again, restore that to 15% over the next year and a half, and I'm confident that we can do that. I would add that the reserve exists to buoy the state in times of a recession. So, I mean, some people said, you know, why don't you just fill this budget gap with the reserve? The reserve's big enough. Why does the legislature need to come back? Why does the governor need to make cuts? I want to be clear, that would be fiscally irresponsible, because there is a forecast of about a 50% chance of a recession in the next 2 years. That is what the reserve is for. This is not a recession, right? We have slow growth, the nation does, but we project, again, as you see here, we'll actually return to a stable surplus unless there's a recession. With the moderate growth the country's been having, Colorado economy is doing better than much of the country, but we will have a return to a surplus if the economy stays steady. But if there is a recession, and it's never a question of if, it's always a question of when. I mean, if we had a crystal ball, nobody does. It could be 1 year, it could be 5 years, it could be 3 years. There's natural cycles in the economy. There will be a recession. That's when Colorado needs the reserve, and we need a healthy reserve. So it would have been completely irresponsible to have gutted that reserve. And part of what we showed the JBC and the public, and we'll be sharing again later today, is if this somehow all came from the reserve, we would be completely unable to cover a minor to moderate recession. And school funding would be gutted. Healthcare funding would be gutted. My two commitments in managing these cuts, and we've kept them both, we are not cutting our public schools one dime. K-12 funding is held harmless because the investment in our children and our kids is so important. Schools are back, teachers are there. It would be incredibly disruptive to have mid-year layoffs and consolidation and larger classes. We want to show that we're continuing our commitment to fully fund our schools. We also have zero cuts to public safety. One of our goals, as you know, is making Colorado one of the safest states. This is a critical area where we wanted to make sure there were no cuts for public safety. In managing the rest of the cuts, it's a little bit of everything. You'll see that here today. We're releasing those. I would add that the first area we went, about $68.7 million, were cuts that I've tried to make and wanted to make all along. They were in our budget. They were cuts that the legislature said we couldn't do in the past. So those are cuts that we're bringing forward. And then in addition to those, we are bringing forward a total of about $252 million that will balance the budget entirely. I want to add that one of those is thanks to the voters, thanks to Prop 123. Prop 123 has a provision that when we are below the Tabor limit, and this is the first year since Prop 123 passed that we are, and I hope it's the last, it allows for some of those funds to be used to support our schools and the budget. So Prop 123 as a whole has over $380 million of funding. It goes to two sources, DOLA and OEDIT. We're not touching the funds that go to DOLA, most of which go out to local government, but there are two pieces that are managed by OEDIT that will be paused for a year for a savings of about $105 million, and that is the equity funding and the land banking funding. So those will be paused for a year, and again, we appreciate the authors of 123, including that flexibility, and it frankly helps save the school funding, just as, again, the actions of the legislature save the school funding. So again, I want to thank the legislature. Without their actions, we'd be talking about cuts to education funding here today. Without Prop 123, we'd be talking about cuts to education funding here today. I'll give a high-level overview of some of the cuts. Happy to answer any questions. Again, many of them we've brought forward before, about $68 million in cuts we proposed in the past, and now we're able to get them through. But first, Department of Healthcare Policy and Financing, we'll see about a $38.3 million cut. Rolls back the provider rates that turned on July 1st. to the same level as last year. So in effect, it's a freeze. It's not a full freeze year over year because they do have the benefits of those of the increased funding for July and August, and I think September too, right? Because of when it goes in, it'll go in October 1st, so they will see the benefit of some of those increases. We also have a number of other items that you'll see that are there. It is a total of about 1.5% cut to the agency's budget. Department of Higher Education will see a $12.7 million reduction, and that, as you know, is the third largest line in our budget. They still see, by the way, $22.1 million increase for the current budget year relative to last budget after this cut, so there's still a significant increase there. Department of Public Health and Environment will see a $3 million cut. Department of Health and Human Services, $1.7 million. We're looking at excess balances and underspending to fill the budget hole. There's some reversions from some programs, including disability support, mobile home water quality fund, college invest. Those are diversions and funds back. And then $6.6 million in severance tax funds from DOLA and Department of Natural Resources. So the general philosophy here, and I just want to be clear, is holding K-12 and public safety harmless, and then minimizing the damage to the state by spreading the rest of the cuts across many different areas, including areas that we've wanted to cut for several years. That's the $68.7 million, but again, above and beyond that, and using the flexibility that the voters gave us with Prop 123 to bring the budget back into balance. I want to add, for example, with regards to severance tax, the severance tax last year were higher than what was budgeted for. And so with a higher level, we're able to absorb the sweep and just sweep the difference back in to help clear this budget gap. So there are, and if you want to get into it between Mark Ferrandino and I, we're happy to explain any of the line items in answering your questions. But general principles, don't hurt our schools, don't hurt public safety, spread it around and minimize the harm, and make sure that we're in a strong fiscal condition and have healthy reserves going forward. So that's what really informed our work to balance the budget, unlike United States Congress that made the federal budget deficit trillions of dollars worse by passing H.R. 1. I said it, this is what we do here in Colorado. We're responsible. We come together. We balance the budget. We prepare for our future. We invest in our future. It's not where we wanted to be. Legislators didn't necessarily want to be here last week. I didn't want to be here today signing this, but when you face a $800 million budget gap because of the actions of Republicans in Congress, the only responsible thing we can do is balance the budget again here in Colorado, and that's exactly what we're doing. I hope that Congress does that, and I'm excited that we are making a balanced, thoughtful approach, delivering for Coloradans, investing in our schools, keeping public safety, and minimizing the impact of these federal actions. So I'm going to be signing Senate Bill 25B001 into law first. I have to sign that one first because that's the one that under which is authority. There were separate authorities I could have used, to be clear, but this bill establishes the authority that I will be then invoking with regard to the executive order. And what we hope here, and we'll see, is after I sign these two bills, it should bring our budget back into balance. I'm going to put those on the scale, and my staff assures me that that will rebalance the budget, just as Mark Ferrandino reassures me that the actual numbers will rebalance the budget. By the way, better than rebalance it. It gives us about a $12 million surplus after these balancing actions. So now that is often used in supplementals and other things, but we will go back to about a $12 million surplus after these actions that I'm going to take today, as well as having over a 13% reserve in case of a recession. And of course, we fully plan to get that back to 15%. So with that, I will sign Senate Bill 1, and then I will take the executive action. Happy to answer your questions. Okay. This one's Senate Bill 1. Okay. Senate Bill 1 is signed. And now the executive actions that balance the budget, protect our schools and public safety, and maintain a strong reserve for the future. Okay, let's see if this works. The Colorado budget is balanced. Happy to answer any questions. Yes.
Governor, in these cuts, I'm seeing a lot of familiar words that tend to tick off the Trump administration, such as disparities, transgender healthcare, Medicaid, equity funding. Are these cuts being made in response to the Trump administration's crackdown on some of these programs at the national level?
Well, the first part, yes, they're being made in response to the Trump administration, but not with regards to the second part of your question. They're being made because of him signing H.R. 1. That's why we're making these cuts. And you will see many things on there. So, I mean, I maybe you picked out 2 or 3 that have buzzwords in them, but I would add that the difficulty in the cuts are spread around. So they're not disproportionately affecting those. There are, I'd have to count the number of things, 20-some, I think, line items between the executive order and the actions that are taken in the cash sweeps. So, no, I mean, the short answer is we went through the budget. We were, again, starting with the 68 million that we've wanted to cut that we haven't been able to. We wanted to cut those, and then going above and beyond that, finding the cuts that would have the minimum harm to the people of Colorado. But yes, it is because of the Trump administration, but because of him signing H.R. 1. No, there's other ones. That's the big one, but yes.
Thank you. So
Mark Ferrandino, Budget Director for the Governor.
Thank you, Governor. So there are provider rates, and then the other place is basically things to control costs. So prior authorization, imposition, putting those in to try and slow the growth of expenditures, post and pre-review of certain expenditures to make sure that we are reviewing those based on, OIG audits and findings that we are working through. So it is a mix, probably about 50-50 between, prior authorization and other cost containment strategies, as well as then provider rate reductions.
Yes, Sean. Well, those are in there too. We certainly started with some of the things that have been added the last few years, cutting those back. So, for instance, the mobile home water fund, $3 million. We have a number of the items are things that have been added the last few years, but that doesn't add up to the balance. So you need to go above and beyond that. Again, we started with about 68 million in cuts that we've been proposing that had not been accepted. So we started with those. Those are things we wanted to cut. It takes a little bit of everything, right? Doing it across the board wouldn't be as effective because then you would be cutting good programs as much as bad programs. So we try to balance that and say these can withstand cuts, not harm people. Others, public safety in our schools, for instance, we didn't want to cut. We avoided cutting. So a lot of thought went into this, and I made the commitment very early on. I wanted to avoid cutting funding for our schools, and we're able to meet that commitment today because of these actions. Some of them.
That the legislature didn't want to take. So using this crisis to effectively overrule the legislature, how did you work with them, or did you work with them in coming to these?
Well, only some of the cuts are 68 million are ones that we had brought forward that had not been accepted, which we were fine with. I signed the budget. We signed a balanced budget. When the budget is not balanced, that changes the equation. So that's why these are now, we're happy to defend any of those with the JBC. We will be later today. But those tend to be the easier cuts rather than the harder cuts. The harder cuts are, as we talked about, some of the difficult ones that we're announcing here today because of H.R. 1, because of congressional action that will impact programs that Coloradans are, find very important. So really, we looked at the evidence and where we can best shoulder these cuts, holding K-12 and public safety harmless, and then not singling anything out. Everything is kind of spread across a lot of other mechanisms that will bring the budget back into balance. So we have a strong fiscal condition here in Colorado. They will be just above 13%. Do you know the dollar amount?
About 300, up to 328 million.
It won't
But
quite
right
be
now
that
we're
much,
at about, yeah, we're at about 315.
So it's
316.
about 315 million. It'll be just over 13%. We like to be at about 15%. Yeah, well, you'll see that in our November 1st budget, but that's very much our plan to do that. Again, we will need to see the next round of economic forecasts. Assuming there's no recession, the state should be back in a healthy surplus for next fiscal year. Sure.
The state has expanded the Medicaid pool over time, and you've said repeatedly that any cuts that happen from here are going to be the fault of Republicans in Congress. But now you've signed something that have made Medicaid provider rate cuts. I've done several stories about
Sure.
providers saying we're going to leave the system because we don't get reimbursed enough. So I guess my question about that is, at what point is it now the state's responsibility for the problem of Medicaid below?
Well, look, Medicaid is a federal program, and we administer it as a state. We contribute to the funding for the Medicaid expansion. But this is just the beginning of the damage of H.R. 1 to Medicaid. I mean, this is the tip of the iceberg, right? What happens over the next couple of years, in 2 years, when the actual cuts hit and some of the onerous paperwork requirements that would require additional work for the state, that's when there's even greater damage to Medicaid. So, look, the state wants to do what we can to make sure people still have access to health care. And that's what we're doing today. Unlike the federal government, we have to balance our budget. So we were saying this all along. What H.R. 1 does, in a way, is it makes these cuts, and then it makes states be the bad guys in delivering the news. And so that's some of the news that we're delivering here today. But fundamentally, the health exchange, Medicaid, these are federal. They were set up by the federal government. The federal government doesn't mean the state doesn't play a role. We do. We're trying to shore up the exchange. We passed a bill to do that, but it won't by any means negate this 26 to 38% increase in insurance rates for individuals that happened because Congress has not renewed the tax credits. Second question?
Yeah, well, since you said federal government, I feel like it's not completely out of left field. With the implosion that's happening at the CDC, with the leadership there, and your vocal support of RFK Jr., he's doing things that are widely seen as damaging and destructible and things that are completely predictable. Do you regret your vocal support of RFK Jr.?
Well, I try to work with anybody, as you know, Marshall, and I was glad that President Trump didn't put a pharmaceutical lobbyist in that position like he did last time. We hope to work on making America healthier, and we already got a SNAP waiver with regard to improving the quality of food available to our lowest income Coloradans and helping to end food deserts. So I've always been critical of his stance on vaccinations, which seem to be the crux of what this current issue is about. I'm a big supporter of making sure that people take responsibility to get themselves and their families vaccinated. I'm vaccinated. My kids are vaccinated. It protects us against disease. And I've always been very critical of some of the things that he said about that. Yeah, I mean, I think, look, we have concerns about all these. Again, obviously, some of them we've proposed. We're not as concerned about those. But I think that this is a long-term discussion for the state of Colorado. What the federal government does comes into play. H.R. 1 was devastating for Medicaid. This is a small piece of that. The bigger pieces are over the next few years. And it's not just a Colorado question. There's many states, and in fact, many Republican states have a higher percentage of people on Medicaid than Colorado. And figuring this out, working with my fellow governors, seeing if Congress is open to changing the law, will certainly be a priority of ours over the next year.
Governor, you said with these cuts and these changes, there should be like a $10 million buffer. But in here, you specifically targeted $131,000 of health benefits for undocumented children. I guess 1% of the surplus. Why specifically go after health benefits?
Yeah, I don't think anything was specifically gone after. You see small cuts to a lot of things. I'm sure Mark can talk about that line item.
So that line item specifically is the outreach budget for that. And so as we were looking at where could we have the least impact on individuals, we felt that was one where there are a good amount of outside advocates doing that work so we could reduce that without impacting individuals.
So again, and what you'll see is, again, I very, I'm here today to say that while we succeeded in holding K-12 schools harmless, public safety harmless, the rest of the cuts are spread around and nothing is singled out. So no, and John, that was kind of to your question too. None of those were like, oh, we're cutting this line item. There's ones that people like in there, I'm sure, and many of them are not zeroed out, they're cut. But it's very much spread out across many different areas of state government to make the savings we need to balance our budget. Oh, including, by the way, the hiring freeze that we implemented. That saves about $3 million as well. That would be an example.
I guess that's my point. You're cutting not just buzzwords, but healthcare, reproductive healthcare for Medicaid patients that are not eligible for Medicaid, sorry. You're cutting what Nick just mentioned. What's the impact going to be to the average Coloradan? Will they see an impact, at least from the DMV cuts maybe? But what is the average Coloradan out there going to see?
Well, look, I mean, it really depends on how every Coloradan interacts with the state, interacts with services. Some people will see no impact. Others will see an impact. We tried to minimize the damage of H.R. 1 and the bill that Republicans passed in Congress. I'm confident that's what we're doing here today. We're taking the path that minimizes the harm to the people of the state and make sure that our state has strong fiscal condition and is well prepared for an uncertain future.
Yeah, the largest bill on taxes that came out of the special session was, of course, on the sales tax credit. I have a two-part question. What's your backup plan if?
Do you mean the income tax credits? Which ones? Oh, the vendor fee. Sorry, which was you talking about?
The sales tax credits that we did to raise revenue.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
That's about $100 million
It is.
to contribute to the
Yes.
shortfall. What's your backup plan if the state is unable to sell those amount of tax credits, and what's your timeline for making that decision?
Let me say two things on that. One is on sort of the policy as a whole, and then the other on the plan. So this is a very obvious way to fund this, because what H.R. 1 did is it moved forward with accelerated depreciation a lot of the expensing for companies that will have a decreased tax bill this year, but frankly increased tax bills in future years. So that's why that's not necessarily one of the things that adds to the federal deficit, because it was a stimulus this year, and they effectively pay for this is money the companies would have got anyway, but they would have gotten it over a longer period of time. So we are kind of doing a logical counterbalance to that. Say, companies, you can then even out your tax liability over time, because the federal government gave you this huge advantage this year that you're paying for in later years. We want to do the opposite to a certain extent with the state. So that was kind of the thought there. It doesn't fully negate this kind of stimulus and then higher tax effective H.R. 1, but it provides a way that companies can have more reliable taxation over time. So that's what we were doing there. Secondly, I would say I'm highly confident that the tax credits will be fully subscribed and that the goals of the legislation will be met.
Governor, the first line item on here, the $3.7 million for transgender healthcare, I thought that was money that the state had to spend as part of their consent decree. So how are we
Yeah.
going to adhere to that?
Yes, so both last year and now for this year, we underspent. It was about $7.2 million for like all the needs that people were asking for, surgeries and others, was all met. But when we estimated, it was higher than what actually happened. So this is just reflecting actual expenses versus appropriation. So no reduction in actual services, just truing up what people actually are spending in this area. So we had basically empty appropriation that wasn't going used that now we're taking back.
What I'm trying to remember. So, I mean, we had to kind of guess what it would cost. Let me say in normal language. We had to guess what it would cost, and we guessed it would cost more than it actually cost. And so that's why some of this money is coming back.
Just thinking about Prop F, MM, and LL, and how some of these are the ones.
Yeah, of course. Right.
On SNAP and obviously lunches. Do you have any thoughts? What happens if those don't pass? And what's the plan?
I would add that those are important for two reasons. One was pre-existing, and then the other one is new. They are important to continue free school meals for every child. And that was really at the heart of why the state initially referred those. However, the projections show that they actually would produce a bit more money than was needed just for free meals for every student. Now that would enable those excess funds to be used to meet the SNAP match requirements for Colorado, to make sure that Colorado is in a position to be able to continue to successfully serve low-income Colorados with nutritional supplemental program. Well, I think many districts will likely eliminate their free lunches for students, all students. They'll still have it for the low-income students. And the state will have to figure out other ways, and you see how the challenges of the general fund, but the state would have to figure out other ways to meet the SNAP match.
So does that look like the first couple months of next session, or do you have a separate plan?
Well, I don't see the state backfilling school meals if these don't pass. I mean, it'll be up to school districts. I saw Boulder Valley School District was out today saying they're going to discontinue it if it doesn't pass. I hope that there's some that can continue it, but probably many of them won't be able to, would be my guess. You'd have to talk to different school districts. And then, as I said, certainly it would be a priority of ours for the state to figure out the SNAP match. That's just a start. We don't need that in the next year's budget. That would be for the following budget the year after that.
Nobody else take it. On a separate note, Governor, on AI, last session you vetoed bills to regulate Uber, you vetoed a bill to regulate social media companies. Now the proposals to regulate AI also fell apart. What does that say about like, kind of the regulating tech industry in Colorado and the challenges there?
I think it says it's complicated and it's important to get it right. I always take a consumer-first perspective. Coloradans are forward-looking, want to be on the cutting edge of adapting different technologies in our daily lives and our work lives. And at the same time, we want to be protected from discrimination. We want to be safe when we're, taking a car somewhere. So it's very important to get these right. I'm confident that there'll, be legislation on these areas in the future. And I think it's a good step that the legislature saw the incredible complexity of some of the issues around AI and is taking the next few months to make sure that we get it right as a state. Go ahead.
103 million in cuts, 146 million in cash fund transfers, and 3 million in a hiring freeze?
That sounds about right. I mean, the cash fund sweeps are also cuts in the sense that those cash funds would have been administered in those agencies and sent. I mean, the biggest one is Prop 123. So let me just make sure you have this right. So that's $105 million. That would have gone out to the land banking and equity building programs in Prop 123. But because Prop 123 said when you're below the Tabor surplus, it can help, the funds can help prevent cuts to our schools and other funds, that money is going to that. So, I mean, those are cuts also. They're just different because they're cash funds. But yes, that's correct. I mean, we administer cash funds differently and the same as the rest of the budget. It depends on the day, but they're technically have separate books.
So it's more like a redirection versus
Yeah. It's a redirection rather than a cut. Thank you. Jesse should be up here, Marshall. It's a redirection and the others are cuts. That's a good way of looking at it. There you go. Thank you, everybody. And again, we're back in balance. I'm proud that Colorado has a strong state budget that's balanced, healthy reserves that we plan to build upon and increase. And I'm proud that thanks to the work of the legislature, we're able to not cut one dime from our public schools or from public safety. Thank you.